So the Sunday Telegraph ran an article today in relation to the Dogs Protection of Livestock Amendment Bill 2024, which is a private member's bill brought forward by Therese Coffey, the former Environment Secretary, in a bid to bring about change in relation to the incidence of dogs worrying, chasing, attacking or killing livestock animals. And as with so many things that come forward with a lot of promise, actually under the hood there's not a lot going on. We've got camelids that have been added to the list of animals that are going to be protected, so your llamas and your alpacas are included. We've got roads and lanes that are also included, as well as enclosed agricultural land. We've got police that are given more powers. They can now seize your dog if they find it worrying livestock and there's no means of contacting the owner or ascertaining who is the owner. The dog can be seized. Well, I hate to deliver it to you, but your dog can already be shot. It can be put down by vets, it can be shot. The idea of it being seized is no great shot across the bows for people. So how on earth that is supposed to be a big grab at the scruff and a wake up, please, I have absolutely no idea. And the police can also go on to take impressions of the dog's feet to build up a portfolio of evidence. They can take DNA from the dog if they suspect that it was involved in an offence, and they can take DNA from the livestock victim as well to see whether or not there's a match there, whether or not the dog was responsible. Well, I recorded just a couple of weeks ago, I was out training with a dog on a long line and there was a dead lamb nearby, and that dead lamb, it had only recently died, but either the crows, the jackdaws, the magpies or the jays or something had already taken the lamb's eyes, but its mother was calling for it and the lamb was still, movable. It hadn't been dead long. How it died, no idea. Very probably from ill health, whether it was malnutrition or whether it was just a sickly lamb, but it had died. The following day, when I went back to the same area, that lamb had gone. And I was walking the dog on the long line and the dog disappeared under a bush. And as I pulled the long line out, I could see that the dog had gone to this lamb that had now been moved to a different location. Only now it had basically had all of its internal organs removed. It had been stripped of any meat and the wool had been pulled down off the bone at the back end, etc. But the dog that I was walking had gone to that lamb, so its DNA was now all over it, and also on the lamb, the dog's DNA was all over the lamb too. So you've got this perfect match, but the dog actually had nothing to do with the death of the lamb whatsoever, nor did whatever predator had moved it from the place where it had died to the place where it had been dissected. So let's say that was fox DNA on the lamb, or badger, or whatever it happened to be. Equally, that animal wasn't responsible for the death of the lamb. So you've got to question the value in DNA as being this breakthrough technique for dealing with evidence gathering in incidents of livestock worrying or attacks by dogs, along with impressions, poor impressions as well. Not to mention, how many police officers do we have patrolling the countryside in a position to be able to investigate and take DNA and foot impressions from dogs? It's absolutely ridiculous. What you need is self-policing. What you need is to develop a culture of responsibility in the dog owning community, so that we can self-police, so that we can encourage one another to deal with the issue before it arises, so that if people think I believe my dog may well be a dog that would chase after other animals, that they can get the relevant training to get that sorted out. And there is relevant training to get it sorted out, but the government doesn't like that, because the government's advisory stakeholders in relation to matters concerning dogs are charities, and those charities don't like the idea of training dogs, particularly where when you're training the dog you have to instill some kind of boundaries where you say you cannot do that, and the idea of saying you cannot do that requires a negative consequence. And all of the charities have aligned themselves with this ideology that that is wrong, that we shouldn't be saying to dogs you can't do that. We shouldn't be using negative consequences for life-threatening behaviours, whether that's for the dog or for another animal, because that is wrong. Instead, we should be doing everything with rewards and kindness and patience and time. One, as though the two are mutually incompatible, and two, as though that in itself is sufficient to teach a dog not to chase after and kill a natural prey animal when it's got the opportunity to do it. And that is what robust, responsible and reliable training does. It can be done very effectively, very reliably, and very simply. You can take a dog and teach a dog, do not go near that animal. Whatever the circumstances, we will still keep you on a lead if we happen to be in close proximity to somebody else's animal or a vulnerable wildlife species, but you will not be dragging or trying to escape the lead or our property or our vehicle or any other circumstances to chase after that given animal, because you have been purposefully trained to avoid it. And I'm not talking about socialisation, which is what the article in the Sunday Telegraph talks about, getting your dog out and socialising it, any more than you would expect a lion that has been socialised with a zebra not to want to chase it when it grows up. But it shows the level of infantile information that is being given to government stakeholders, decision makers, by the people that they are speaking with. And that is because the charities that they're speaking with, the dog charities that they're speaking with, don't deal with that issue. That isn't their ballpark, but they feel compelled to give their advice and their information and their instruction regardless. Now, if you go to Dogs Trust, or if you go to the RSPCA, you go to Battersea, Bath Cats and Dogs Home, you go to the Blue Cross, you go to the British Veterinary Association, and you ask them, what training do you recommend for me to stop my dog from wanting to chase after a prey animal, given any opportunity to successfully and reliably stop it from doing so? And can you demonstrate that to me, please? It's a very simple question. What do I do? Can you show it to me? You're the ones that are telling me how I ought to be doing something. Now, if you can do that, and if you get an answer, and if you get a demonstration, I would very much like to see it, because it's something that we at the Association of Responsible Dog Owners have been asking for the last 6 years, and as of yet, we're still waiting. All we get is keep your dog on a lead, as though we wouldn't do that anyway. But we want to cover all bases. And by responsible and robust training, and I'm talking about teaching dogs to come back instantly when they're called, teaching dogs to walk beautifully when they're on a lead, not to want to pull or drag or lunge at other animals, teaching dogs purposefully to avoid other protected animals. These are all things that we would incorporate in our armoury, and we consider that to be absolutely responsible and absolutely admirable. And we also believe that we should have a seat at that table where those discussions take place, given that we are the people that are out there training the dogs, actually training the dogs in these situations, and we own the dogs that are responsible for these incidents, or that have been trained preventatively beforehand so that they never wish to do or be involved in these incidents. Why wouldn't you want those people at your discussion table to help you make the right decisions in order to tackle the problem? Instead, we have things like the Telegraph article here, where you have Dogs Trust being asked, who come up with nothing other than have control over your dog. There's no actual answer there as to how you do that. And then you have a bit of blame pointing towards the pandemic yet again. Everything's the pandemic, isn't it? It's like the convenient scapegoat at the moment. It's a pandemic puppy, that's why. This has been going on for decades, literally decades, and it isn't getting any better. And this Dogs Protection of Livestock Amendment Bill 2024 brings nothing whatsoever to the table for the farmers or for the dog owners or for anybody involved in the protection of vulnerable species in terms of the prevention, the actual prevention of the dog from wanting to, from choosing to carry out that act in the first place. We think that is very, very wrong, and we would like to engage with stakeholders at any opportunity. We remain open, we're receptive to be able to put forward our experiences and our direct recommendations based on a history of extensive experience, not ideology, not wishful thinking, but extensive experience and sound repeated science. Thank you.